Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Veeam ONE Hybrid Cloud Backup Monitoring Masterclass. My name is Kirsten Stoner. I'm a product strategy technologist at Veeam. I've been at Veeam for a while now, so I'm really happy to be here with you today and talk to you about continuous monitoring. Continuous monitoring is important for every organization, and it's going to be able to provide you with a current view of your compliance status and what needs to be done to maintain compliance. It's going to help track data security, plan for capacity, and also allow you to monitor backup operations to ensure backups are successful. So since you're attending this webinar today, you may already be utilizing the hybrid cloud environment. And we're actually seeing a lot of organizations utilizing this type of infrastructure. There's many benefits of using the cloud, right? You have scalability, durability, and flexibility, but we're still seeing that some workloads may not be suitable for the cloud and would need to potentially stay on premises. And this is really where the hybrid cloud structure can benefit organizations. On our screen, we're looking at the Data Protection Trends Report for 2024. This was just released a couple months ago, and the numbers are there. Many companies are utilizing that hybrid cloud environment, and this continues to be a trend amongst organizations today. However, even with all the benefits the hybrid cloud infrastructure has, there are still some challenges. And some of these challenges can be grouped into similar categories. So if you think about monitoring in management, managing data across landscapes can be difficult. So you need to make sure that you have that visibility into where your data lies, making sure you're monitoring your data, your backup policies, and fixing any issues in real time. There's a knowledge and skills gap. Traditionally, workloads run in the data center. Now workloads can run in the cloud. And you still might have those workloads that are virtual machines, physical machines as well. But with new technology, there's new things to learn. So there's always going to be something to learn when you're thinking about making sure you're protecting that data in the cloud and ensuring that you have the same standards that you have on premises up into the cloud as well. Next, you have data security. So making sure that the data security policies you have on premises extend to the cloud, right? It's a larger attack vector, and you want to make sure that both environments are in compliance with each other, which leads us to governance and compliance. So making sure you're following best practices and controls based on your business, industry, meeting those regulations set up by your businesses today. You also have cost, right? So a lot of times with the cloud, putting workloads up into the public cloud, you might have some hidden costs associated with that, and no one wants an unexpected bill. So really making sure you're understanding what you're paying for, the pricing structure is another challenge that comes with the hybrid cloud environment. And then lastly, with increased data landscape, there's going to be increased complexity, right? You're going to have multiple workloads running in different types of environments across your data center into the cloud. So it might cause some more complexity. But really where we're going to focus on today is the monitoring piece, right? The monitoring and helping manage your hybrid cloud data protection policies. And this is really how Veeam can help you. And Veeam does this through the Veeam Data Platform. The monitoring and management tool that we have within the Veeam Data Platform is called Veeam ONE. And this is really going to help you watchdog all data protection operations. A monitoring and management solution should not add more complexity to your environment. Instead, it should help streamline operations, identify bottlenecks, and ensure data protection operations are performing as normal. With the Veeam Data Platform, you can be sure that you can monitor your environment with ease. You can identify issues in real time. You can simplify management and easily monitor your workloads and their protection status. You can automate remediation, so making sure you're utilizing automation to remediate any issues so you can free up your time for other more important matters. You can help ensure compliance. So making sure you're meeting your recovery point objectives for your business, following any of those industry regulations that you may have. And then lastly, you're going to gain documentation. So this is going to be really useful when we think about showing any type of key stakeholders what's happening in the environment, and making sure that we're meeting compliance, right? So now we're going to go ahead and jump into the demo session of our webinar. So I first want to show you here, just the Veeam downloads page. And as you can see here, here's the Veeam data platform download. Within this download, if you're using advanced or premium, you're going to be able to get access to Veeam ONE and then also Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. Veeam ONE's really going to help monitor your backup operations. And then through this page, you can just go ahead and download a trial. Once you've downloaded the ISO, you want to install it. And what's going to really come in handy is really this help center page on veeam.com. So this is going to provide you with all the different user guides that you're going to use to get set up, get your Veeam ONE instance set up. If I come in here and click on it, you're going to be able to drill into, the Veeam ONE architecture, the different deployment scenarios. And then when you're deploying Veeam ONE, you're going to want to make sure that you take a look at the system requirements. You want to make sure that you're setting up your server, it has enough resources so that Veeam ONE can operate, and you're using supported operating systems and different things like that. So this is really going to be the start of your journey when you're thinking about installing Veeam ONE into your environment. However, some of you might already have Veeam ONE installed in your environment, and maybe you're just looking to learn a little bit more about some of the capabilities that Veeam ONE has to offer. So this is really where we're going to open up the Veeam ONE client, and this is going to be the central hub of all your monitoring operations, your data protection monitoring, your virtual environment monitoring, and different things like that. As you can see, I have my Veeam backup and replication tree open. I have 2 backup servers that I have connected into my environment, and I can see right away how my data protection status and jobs are doing. If I switch into this data protection view here, at first glance, you're going to be able to see all the backup jobs running in your environment. But in this glance right here, this is going to show us, virtual machines, physical machines, really where we're going to be able to monitor those cloud workloads and that cloud data protection is when we switch this tab here. And as you can see, I have, a backup job running in Microsoft Azure. I'm using Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure in this scenario. And I can come in here and take a look and see, the machine I am protecting, the last time it was backed up, and also the latest snapshot. So if you're using Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, Veeam Backup for AWS, or Veeam Backup for Google Cloud Platform, you're going to be able to see those backup jobs within this view right here. Another area of the cloud that Veeam backs up is object storage. So you're probably going to want to be able to monitor those jobs as well. So if we take a look at our unstructured data tab, the first section we see is object storage. And as you can see, I am backing in object storage bucket up. I just ran this a couple minutes ago. So the duration is very short because I haven't had too much changes in that bucket, but I can see here that it was a success and that it is properly backed up. Now, if you're using any type of cloud file shares, you'll be able to see those within this view here, and then also any file share servers as well that you're backing up. In my environment, some of my jobs are failing, right? So if we switch into our Veeam ONE web client, which is really going to be the central hub for reporting operations, you're going to see that we do have some reports that you can use to monitor your cloud backup environment. So if I switch to reports, and I just go in here and easily select cloud, you're going to see I have a report here called protected cloud instances. So one thing with the cloud is that it's really easy to automate deployment of machines and manage those cloud resources. However, this could lead to a scenario where some of those, deployments, some of those instances are left unprotected because you're automating that. You might not be thinking to, change your backup policy to include those instances, right? That's why using something like tagging and using tagging-based backup policies is very useful. But another thing you can use is this protected cloud instances report. And if I drill down into here, you can actually see that this is going to pick up all the instance types that Veeam can protect. So if you're using Amazon Web Services, you have EC2, RDS, Microsoft Azure, you're going to have the virtual machines, SQL database files, and GCP. So if you're utilizing multiple clouds in your environment, which a lot of organizations are, you can be able to gather all the information about those cloud instances and their backup policies into one report. I have already ran this report. So here is my protected cloud instances. And my environment is pretty small, I would say. It is a lab environment. So I'm only backing up a couple Azure instances here. But immediately you're going to be able to see, how many instances you're backing up, how they're protected, and then also drill down into the instance name, what the protection type is, where that backup data is being stored, and the number of restore points. So this report's going to be very useful in just making sure that you're catching all of those instances that you're deploying and you're making sure they're protected. One thing I also want to point out is that you can also schedule this to be delivered to your inbox, right? So you're not going to necessarily have to come in and have to run this report every day. You can easily schedule this to say, hey, every 24 hours or every day at this time, can you go ahead and send this to my email, fill out the recipients, you can make the report, protected cloud instances, update, or whatever you feel like you want to do, and just click next and save, and you will be good to go, and you'll be able to get those delivered right into your inbox. So that can be very useful as well for your organization. The next report I wanted to show you here is just that object storage, making sure our object storage is backed up and protected. That's one of the newer functionalities that Veeam Backup and Replication can perform, right? So once again, I always love being able to type in and do a quick search for the report that I'm looking for, but I would say that I am a little bit biased because I've been working with Veeam ONE for so long now that I kind of just remember some of these reports names. So I can just kind of like remember certain keywords and be like, this is the report I'm looking for. So if I type in object, there's going to be that same type of report, right? So you're going to get that protected files and object storage report. You can choose, the different type of jobs, whether you want it to show your object storage backups or all file backups. Your designated recovery point objective. So for each organization, this might be different, right? So you can, tailor this to fit the needs of your business. I have already ran this report as well, and I'm going to come over here and click back a little bit. So you're going to, get that general overview of your protection status, how much data you're protecting, if you're inside the RPO or if you're outside the RPO. And then you're going to be able to drill down and get a little bit more of the details similar to what I have showed you previously, but for object storage. So this is, really the same type of report, just really identifying those unprotected workloads, if they're meeting the recovery point objectives or not, and letting you know that so you can, rerun the backup job, or actually maybe you just forgot to back it up, and you can make sure that you're double checking that and circling back and making sure your data is protected. So these are some really good reports when we think about, the protection of our cloud workloads and our object storage. But you might be utilizing the cloud in a different way, right? Maybe you're sending your backups to object storage. And you're going to be able to monitor those repositories as well. So you think about maybe you're storing your backups in AWS. You can come in here. This AWS repository is set up to have that immutability that we know and love, right? So I can come in here and see my immutability time period, the amount of used space, and just get a general overview of the amount of data I'm storing in that repository. If you're utilizing scale-out backup repository, maybe you are utilizing an object storage solution on premises, maybe like an object first, or maybe like a Backblaze or something like that. You can come in here and see the same type of statistics. And then in this case, we're taking it and offloading it to Wasabi. What I really like about this, especially using the scale backup repository feature, right, is a lot of times we get asked about the data offload jobs, the data transfer jobs, when it happens, how much data is, being offloaded. So you actually have this extra tab up here that is really going to be able to show you those offload jobs, that offload copy, what backup job was offloaded, the extent it was going to, when it started, when it ended, and the amount of transferred data. So really providing you with that visibility as well within your environment. So this is a lot of monitoring for your cloud workloads, your object storage, your backup repositories. But within the hybrid cloud infrastructure, you probably are going to have some of those machines that maybe are still virtual machines, or maybe they're still physical machines. And what's great about Veeam ONE is you're really going to be able to monitor all those backup policies within one place and get alerted on those backup policies, whether they failed, if there's any type of suspicious activity within them. You're going to be able to monitor those as well. So if I come back up here and just click on the general overview of my backup environment, and I go to alarms, you're going to see that there's a lot of different alarms here that have been triggered. And a lot of these alarms are just telling me maybe I disabled a job. This is telling me about my scale backup repository data transfer session state. So if I click on this alarm, this is actually going to provide me with a little bit more details of why this alarm was triggered. So we have, let me just actually go ahead and click on this. And then if I go to here, this is just a better overall view, so you can get you can read a little bit more about it. So this is just telling me, knowledge of what happened during that data transfer session. There was an error. Gives me the cause of why that error might happen, and then provide me with some ideas on how I can resolve that problem. So really helping with observability of your environment. I mentioned too a lot that you can set up, automatic remediation for these alarms. So what's really great about all the alarms within Veeam ONE is that they are adjustable. They're editable. You can edit them to fit the needs of your organization. So if I just go ahead and click on the suspicious incremental backup size alarm, go ahead and right click here. if I click on that knowledge base, you're going to see, what this alarm is, why it was triggered. And then if we go to the rules, this is really where I'm going to be able to edit that alarm and adjust it as needed. I can also assign this alarm to a specific part of my infrastructure. Um, and then you're going to be able to set actions. So this is really where you're going to be able to help automate some of that remediation tasks. And this one is actually one of my favorite ones, just because you're going to be able to add this machine to a sure backup job and then start a verification. So one thing you can do within the Veeam data platform is, test the recoverability of your backups. And that's done through that sure backup job. A part of that is being able to run an antivirus scan on that data, right? Checking to see if there's any type of anomalies or signs of malware. So if this alarm goes off, the suspicious incremental backup size alarm goes off, this is telling us, hey, there might be, malware installed on that machine. And that's up to you to decide, right? You're going to have to do a little bit more digging. You're going to have to, investigate and see if malware is installed. But one of the things that you can do is you can say, okay, if this alarm is triggered, I'm going to say, go ahead and add this virtual machine to a sure backup job and start that antivirus scan. So this is going to, scan that data for any signs of malware. And then if you have a keen eye, you will also see that, there's the Veeam malware detection alarms as well. So if that scan turns up and it detects malware, you'll also get an alert telling you, hey, that we had that suspicious incremental backup size. We went ahead and, automatically scanned it with that antivirus scan. And then we get another alarm saying, potential malware in our backups, the malware detection has happened. So this is going to be a really great indicator of you to perform any type of other necessary steps that you might need to perform. Maybe you need to remove that machine from the network. Maybe you need to isolate it so that you can really mitigate a ransomware attack in your environment. So that's something that you can do with the different alarms in your environment in Veeam ONE. So if I go into alarm management here and I go to the Veeam backup and replication, these are really going to be all the alarms that are going to help monitor your backup infrastructure. If I scroll down here, or you also have that quick search option as well. So if I type in cloud, right, you're going to see all these alarms that are really going to help out with my cloud environment. A cloud repository free space. If you're utilizing, something like Cloud Connect, cloud backup policy session state, basically letting you know if your, backup job failed. One thing you can also do with these alarms is set up notifications, right? So this is you can be notified a couple of different ways through email, through an SMP trap. You can run a script, or if you're utilizing an IT service management platform, maybe you're utilizing ServiceNow within your environment, you can actually now create a ServiceNow incident as well. So this alarm goes off in Veeam ONE. You're already using ServiceNow. You can actually have that open an incident. So you're in ServiceNow, you can see that alarm be triggered there as well. If you're utilizing syslog, you can also send a syslog message too. And that's pretty easy to set up. So for example, I can go ahead and just click create ServiceNow incident and click save. So if I were to open up my ServiceNow instance, which I might be able to do here in a little bit, I'm going to be able to see that alarm within ServiceNow. If you are thinking about, if you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that with ServiceNow, one thing I will show you as well, it's really easy to get started outing your ServiceNow instance into Veeam ONE. If you click on this cheeseburger menu and you go to settings and you go to server settings, And then you can see these two tabs here, the service now. All you need to do is add in your instance URL, your proper credentials. You can go ahead and test the ServiceNow integration, which I am using the developer instance, and it tends to turn off on me. So I don't know if this will actually, it might come back failed. Oh, okay, yeah, it's still turned on, so that's pretty great. So you can see that my ServiceNow, I tested it, it's connected. So if I were to open up my ServiceNow, you'll be able to see those alarms within that view as well. So one thing I also wanted to talk about, and be sure guys, if you guys have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat here. This is a masterclass, so I want to make sure that all your questions get answered. And that you get everything out of this presentation that you can possibly get. So if I go ahead in here and log in again, because this always makes me log in. One thing I want to showcase here as well is really this new threat center. So this is going to help with monitoring the activity that's happening within your backup infrastructure. This is going to show you where you can remediate and fix any type of security gaps you might have within the backup infrastructure. Provides a very good starting point. So once you add Veeam Backup and Replication into Veeam ONE, it's going to start collecting all this data about your environment, and then utilizing this data to give you insights into your environment. So one of the great things is really this data platform scorecard. So this is going to take a look at the security and compliance analyzer within Veeam Backup and Replication that you can run. It's going to take a look at your protected machines, if they're meeting your recovery point objectives. It's going to take a look at any type of inline scanning, malware scanning you're doing through Veeam Backup and Replication as well, and providing you with insights there. And then also your immutability status. So you probably are sending maybe some of your backups to object storage with immutability, right? So this is going to take a look at that and really make sure that the workloads are being protected with that immutable time period. One of the reports I really enjoy is actually this security and compliance report. So a lot of the times when we think about security, and security is top of mind for everybody today, organizations, IT professionals, even me, I'm always like, is someone trying to hack my internet? Probably. Got to use the VPN, right? So with this backup security compliance, this is really going to take a look at that backup security, that security and compliance analyzer within Veeam Backup and Replication, and provide you with insights into how that was performed. So this can be really useful if you have multiple backup servers running in your environment, really adding all that information into one place. So if I go ahead and click preview, this is going to show me, my backup server, how many best practices that I'm following, how many I'm not following, and when it was last checked. And then if I drill down into this a little bit further, you're going to get a list of the best practices that you should be following to make sure you're hardening your backup infrastructure, as well as any like product configuration configuration you can do and implement within your environment to make sure it's protected, right? So if your boss comes to you and says, I'm hearing a lot in the news that ransomware is getting into the backup infrastructure, what are we doing to make sure that we're protecting ourselves there? You can go ahead, run this report, hand it to them and say, hey, we are following the best practices, the guidelines, and ensuring that our backup infrastructure is being protected. So that's one of a newer report that I really like and I find very useful as well. So yeah, so let's see if there's any questions that have come in so far. Okay, let's see here. So I have a question that says, my manager is really into the NIST cybersecurity framework. How can this monitoring tool help follow us these guidelines? Well, within that cybersecurity framework, there's, 5 functions that you need to be following, right? It's like identify, detect, protect, recover, and there's one more off the top of my head that I can't think about. Um, so really where this monitoring tool is going to help with is, identifying. So you're going to be able to group your critical machines by, by category, whether you want to do it per like by database, maybe by application owner. You can do that within Veeam ONE, and then you can also, run reports based on those groups. You can also set alarms based on those groups as well. So if you have certain application owners that need to just be monitoring certain machines, you can make sure that you set up those notifications to be sent to them. And then when we think about detect, right? Detect is really going to come into play when you're detecting that abnormal activity. So, with Veeam ONE, you're monitoring your environment, you're identifying that normal activity. But then when something, abnormal happens, you're going to be able to say, okay, that's off. I need to, dig a little deeper and do some investigation and see it to make sure that we're detecting those threat actors as fast as we can so we can mitigate the spread of an attack, right? So another question we have is there any additional configuration needed to monitor our object storage or our cloud workloads backups? So you just need to make sure that you have added, you're backing up your object storage with Veeam Backup and Replication, because Veeam ONE will be able to see that. Also, when you're thinking about your cloud workload backups, right? So if you're utilizing any of the Veeam Backup for AWS, Azure, or anything like that, um, you're going to want to make sure you add in those backup servers within Veeam Backup and Replication as well, so you can monitor all those backup policies in one state, in one pane, right? Okay, so another question I have is, how do we set up Veeam ONE integration with ServiceNow? So I think I showed you guys that already, but that's just going to be within the settings, the server settings, and then right here, ServiceNow, syslog. If you're using either of those toolboxes, pretty easy and straightforward. Any update on when Veeam ONE will be able to use PostgreSQL? Um, Hopefully soon. As many of you guys know, if you're utilizing Veeam Backup and Replication, you can now utilize that as the Veeam Backup database. So that's something that our team is actively working on to make sure that you're able to use that functionality there as well. If you are running one Veeam Backup server, does it make sense to install Veeam ONE? And if so, do you recommend installing separate system than the VNR server? I would say that it does make sense to install Veeam ONE just because you might have multiple backup jobs that are running in your environment. You want to monitor those backup jobs, right? You also have all these, out of the box alarms that you can utilize within your organization that are going to take a look at, suspicious activity, or, if your backup jobs are failing, your mutability state. I'm just looking at my screen too, job disabled, if a job was disabled. So really giving you those watchdog eyes on your environment, especially when you think about, what rogue admin goes in and disables your backup jobs, or change your immutability time frame, you want to get well, you're going to want to get alerted about that. And so that's one of the things that Veeam ONE can do also, and remediate those issues. Do I recommend installing it on a separate system than the B&R server? I would say yes, I do. You can always install the console on the B&R server and have your Veeam ONE server separate, and then just access the Veeam ONE server through the console, right? Okay, another question I have here is, can we create custom report backup reports? Okay, so within Veeam ONE, you do have this custom reports tab as well. So there's a couple different reports that you have. A lot of times, a lot of people use this backup infrastructure custom data. And this is going to be, you're going to choose your infrastructure objects, your Veeam backup and replication. You can choose your object type, workload, virtual machine. And then next we're going to choose your columns. So you're going to be able to choose like what you want the report to show. And through all these different object types, so if I go by job, right, you're going to get some different columns here that you can filter in by. So really, making sure if you want to utilize this feature, right, you're going to want to come in here and take a look at some of these different columns and make sure that you can set up the report to show you what you want to show. So if I were just to come in here and add this backup server, maybe we do job date, job name. Maybe you want to know how long the backup jobs are running. So let's say last run duration, so how long it's taking. Let's make sure we see the status, if it failed or was successful. Let's go processed workloads, right? So then you can actually come over here and move these up and down, kind of filter them out as well. So if I click apply and then I go to preview, this might take, okay, it didn't take that long at all. Okay, so as you can see now, I've created this backup infrastructure custom data report. I see my backup server, the names, the amount of workloads that are in that job, how long it took, and the last run status. So if you can see, this one took actually pretty long, huh? And then it didn't even finish. It was stopped before it was finished because it took 90 hours, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So there was definitely something that was going on there. But that's one of the things you can do. But what I would recommend as well, if you come in here and you're, working with this infrastructure custom data report, make sure you save the report to my reports folder. So then you don't always have to go in and configure the same columns. Because if you don't save it, you're gonna, every time you want to see that data, you're gonna have to go in and reconfigure the columns and things like that. This is another another way you can also schedule this to be in your inbox. You can also consider the report builder. So maybe you have, those you want to use that protected cloud workloads report, that you want to monitor your protected virtual machines, your protected agent jobs, your protected file share jobs. That's one of the ways you can just build out all that information into one report with the report builder. The key to report builder is making sure, I showed you guys, is saving those reports, because once you save those reports in right here, you're going to be able to build those build that larger report after those saved reports. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what I would, Himesh, that's basically what I meant. You would want to use that report builder functionality. Is ServiceNow with a separate company? Yes, it is. It is one of those toolboxes that is a separate company. But now we have integration with them, so you can get incidents through them as well. Is the license for Veeam ONE different from the one used for Veeam Backup and Replication? It depends on what version of the Veeam data platform you're using. So there's 3 different versions: Veeam Data Platform Regular, Veeam Data Platform Advanced, and Veeam Data Platform Premium. So the advanced and premium versions are going to have Veeam ONE included within it, and it should be the same license file. So you won't have to get like a new license file or anything. It should be all within that same license file and that installable image, right? What version of Veeam has the security and compliance? So that version is going to be, it was introduced in version 12, but now it's gotten more functionality with version 12.1. So version 12.1 was just released maybe December, January. And I don't know if you're like me, but January felt like it was 5 months long. So I'm thinking, we released 12.1 5 months ago, but in reality, it was just yesterday. Actually, it wasn't yesterday, but it was a month ago. So if you want to get that functionality, make sure you upgrade or update. How does the licensing work? We need to monitor both on-prem and cloud resources. So if you're using Veeam Universal Licensing, it should be the same. You should be able to monitor those instances as well if you're utilizing that Veeam Data Platform Advanced option. Okay, so another question we got, is there a hosted SaaS version of Veeam ONE in Azure, AWS, or is it just solely on-prem at the moment? At the moment, it's solely on-prem. It would be super awesome, though, if there was a SaaS version. From Veeam ONE, can you get reports for what tapes are supposed to go offsite and get back from offsite? We do have some tape reports included within Veeam ONE, but I don't think it's going to tell you exactly what you're looking for potentially. So we have backups on tape. So this is going to tell you what backups you have on tape, provide information on exported tape. So this is really where I would start. Unfortunately, I do not have a tape server added into this lab. So I can't really show any of the data within these reports. But there are tape reports. So this is, if you want to get some more information on that, do that quick search for tape within Veeam ONE reports, and you're going to be able to see all the different reports that are available. Cool, and yes, this is live. This is a live webinar. So any other questions that you guys may have, be sure to put those in the chat. So a question I got here is, I currently use Veeam ONE, but I get a lot of notifications. What are some ways I can minimize unwanted notifications? Okay, so that is a good observation. So if I go into Veeam ONE client, so the Veeam ONE client is really going to be the central hub for alarm management monitoring. The Veeam ONE web client is really kind of more like dashboards, reports, different things like that. So you're getting a lot of notifications. So a lot of the times when I talk to customers, I tell them about this feature here. So if you right click on the virtual environment, and you might be able to do it here as well. So yeah, so if you right click on your Veeam Backup and Replication environment and you go to define alarms, this is going to show you, all these alarms that are within your that has Veeam ONE contains, right? There's over 300 alarms. So one thing that you can do is you can say, depending on what you're looking to do, right? You can say, I might not need all these alarms. So I'm just going to go ahead and click exclude, and it's going to go ahead and exclude all these alarms from being alerted. And then what you can do is you can start going through here and you can say, okay, I definitely want to know about my agent backup job state, my agent policy state, and just, slowly go through some of these alarms and decide, which ones you want to be triggered. Because we know alert fatigue is something that is definitely happened. Another way that you can minimize notifications, right, is making sure that you're adjusting the alarms to fit your organization. So maybe you have a virtual environment, and I always like kind of showing this too. As you can see, I have a machine that has high CPU usage. If I click on this machine, I can, get some more details of this machine. It's at 91%. I see the guest disk usage over here, but maybe, I've been monitoring this machine for, months, and it's always kind of teetering on that, 75, 90% CPU usage. But that alarm keeps getting triggered, and it's, maybe super frustrating, right? Because I don't need to see it all the time. So what you can do is you can come in here and you go edit alarm, and then under these rules, you can say, okay, maybe I want you to shoot me off a warning at, 95, and I want you to send me an error at 98. So you can easily adjust these alarms as you see fit, right? Another way you can also help with notifications is if you are utilizing something like that ServiceNow or Syslog, you can make sure that you're sending those notifications through those alarm settings to those applications. So you don't necessarily have to get alerted about everything that's happening in your environment, just those critical notifications. What resources can be monitored through Veeam ONE when it comes to the cloud? Okay, so when it comes to the cloud, you can monitor your cloud backup policies. So if you're utilizing that Veeam backup for AWS or Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and any of those supported workload types. So that's going to be AWS, if you're backing up AWS EC2, RDS, EFS, Microsoft Azure Virtual Machines, SQL Database, Azure Files, Google Cloud Compute Engine, and SQL. So if you're backing up those using those Veeam backup products, you're going to be able to monitor that backup policy, those backup policies, whether they failed or were successful. You're also going to be able to monitor that object storage backup. You're also going to be able to monitor your backup repositories that are in the public cloud. So making sure you're monitoring your capacity there, any data transferring, things like that. So I got another question about ServiceNow, and it says, is the Veeam ONE integration communication with ServiceNow bidirectional? Example, if an alert is triggered and resolved in Veeam ONE, does it close the ticket in ServiceNow and vice versa? Peter, I believe so. I believe it is bidirectional within ServiceNow. So if the alarm goes off and you're in your ServiceNow and you close the ticket within ServiceNow, it should close it as well in Veeam ONE. Okay, cool. Yeah, just feel free to ask any more questions. We still have some time here. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that you guys might find interesting to see, or anything you want me to show you. Feel free to drop it in the chat. because I have my demo lab of open and it's working right now. So that's always a positive thing. Okay, so we did have a question about Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 and if Veeam ONE can also monitor those backup operations um, within that backup environment. And the answer is yes. As you can see here, we do have a tab that's going to help monitor Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 operations. And we do have a set of reports that also monitors that as well. The reports will be filtered in once you add in your Office 365 server. So, but since this, I don't have my backup for Microsoft 365 server added in here, but it's going to be super easy to add in. Add it in by the DNS name or IP address, the proper credentials, and it will start collecting that information for you. Very similar to adding in VBR, right? What malware detection engine does it use? So within Veeam ONE, how we really find the anomalies, the suspicious activity, is by looking at resources, right? So we have a couple alarms that are triggered with when that abnormal activity happens. So one of them is the possible ransomware activity alarm, and let's see if that's definitely not that one. It might be potential. Yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of actually potential malware and backups. But that's not the one that I wanted to look at, but I will talk about that one too. Let's do this. Okay, this one. So this is the one I was talking about. This one specifically is going to take a look at the resources the machine's utilizing. So think about like CPU, memory, network, write rate, read rate. And if that activity there is higher than normal, this is going to trigger it, which could be a sign something has been installed on that machine. When we take a look at some of the malware alarms, this is going to be based off of that malware scanning that is within Veeam Backup and Replication. So within 12.1, you now have that inline malware scanning. You can look for file extensions. So that's really going to be triggered from that activity within the backup server. For the inline scanning and the guest file indexing, that is like a Veeam technology that takes a look at that. For the antivirus scan and some of the other scanning options that you have, that is going to use some antivirus solutions that we have integrated with just out of the box. So if you're utilizing Windows Defender, and a couple of the other ones, that's going to work with those as well. And let's see if I can find them here and I can show you guys. I haven't looked at this in a while, so I don't know where it says that, huh? But I know that there are some, let's see, it might be under Secure Restore. Antivirus scan for Secure Restore. Okay, I can't find it, guys. I apologize. But as you can see here, within the user guide for Veeam Backup and Replication, there's this whole section about malware detection. So I think ESET is also one that we integrate with as well. So some of the more popular ones you might be using, we do have integration out of the box. So there's another question here, and it says, is it possible to monitor and report physical server agent-based backups? Yes, it is. So if I go back into here in the Veeam Backup and Replication console, you can see my agent jobs and policy status here. And then if I go to data protection and I click on this computers tab, so these are all the backup jobs that I'm using those agents for. You see which backup server they belong to and also the job type. So maybe you're using the Linux agent, maybe you're doing a transaction log backup, Windows agent. You're going to be able to get those those details here. And then additionally, there are reports as well. So over here, if I take a look at this, Veeam agents, there we are. There's 4 reports that you can utilize to monitor those backups. So we still have some time. Feel free to, continue to ask any questions that you may have here. One of the reports too, since we do have some time, and is the new version called Veeam Data Platform Advanced. So it's the Veeam Data Platform, but in previous versions, it was, Veeam Backup and Replication plus Veeam ONE. Now it's just Veeam Data Platform Advanced. That's just both those products put together. If you are a Veeam customer for a long time, you actually might remember, Veeam Availability Suite, right? So that was the same, Veeam Backup and Replication and Veeam ONE together. But really where the game changer comes in is really being able to use Veeam Recovery Orchestrator to orchestrate restores, right? So, but that's, the next version up. So however, whatever your business needs are, that's something that you could look into. And yeah, we will be sending out the recording and the slides, I believe. So be on the lookout for those. Okay, cool guys. So I thank you so much for taking time to, attend my Veeam ONE Masterclass. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love talking about Veeam ONE. If I can help you guys in any way, configure it for your environment or, make it work for you guys, let me know. I would love to help you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thank you for attending.